Standing for their right to be separate, hundreds of thousands of Israel's ultra-Orthodox, called Haredim and known by their black and white outfits, gathered peacefully in Jerusalem on March 3rd to oppose a new bill before Parliament that would require them to be drafted into the military for the first time in Israel's 65-year history. A draft that has always been mandatory for the rest of Israel's Jewish population.
פשוט הרבנים אמרו לא להתגייס, אז אנחנו לא מתגייסים. כן, פשוט. רבי עקיבא גם על לימוד תורה ישב בכלא, אז גם אנחנו מסכימים לשבת בכלא על לימוד תורה.
Well, I don't like the word protest. I really believe that there should be conversation between all the different facets of the Jewish people and not a protest. Because we need to understand that we're one people with different purposes.
This is Mea Shearim, one of the many exclusively Haredi neighborhoods in Israel where the men dedicate themselves to the study of Torah and are threatened by this bill that would force them out of this environment and to join the army. This bill is seen as an attack on the Jewish faith and the Haredi's view of themselves as its sacred guardians.
שעם ישראל ששומרים את התורה ואת המצוות מבקשים לשמור על הייחוד שלהם, לא רוצים להתערב עם נשים בצבא. אם זה היה צבא שכולו חרדי, כולם היו מתגייסים, איש לא היה נהדר.
Despite the efforts to stop it, the bill passed nearly unanimously in Israeli parliament the following week. In this fairly young country on the Mediterranean coast, that is no stranger to age-old conflicts and wars, the army is a sacred institution. Not only is the draft mandatory, but it plays a key role in the development of national identity and pride. A national identity that the Haredim fear is drifting dangerously far from its history, rooted in Jewish practice. To try to better understand how this law came about, I spoke with Kalev Myers, a lawyer and founder of the Jerusalem Institute of Justice. Kalev has been defending human rights in Israel for a decade, and as soon as I walked into his office, he apologized for his fat lip, a result of one of his many passions, martial arts.
Basically, there's a law that says that Israeli citizens have to do 3 years of army service. But Ben-Gurion, our first prime minister, made this compromise with the ultra-religious that gave this huge exemption to ultra-religious who are studying in yeshivot and institutes of intense Torah study. That pretty much has continued for the last 65 years. So the way it works is the Minister of Defense just gives this exemption that is outside of the bounds of the law.
So in order to better understand why Haredim feel so strongly about studying Torah, I'm dusting off my yarmulke and heading to Kesher Yeshiva, where I'm going to speak with Yoel Dobbs, who's a counselor and a Torah teacher there.
I would say that we don't view it as an exemption. We view it as we have shouldered the burden of being the representatives to sit in the study hall doing the most important thing, we believe, the most important thing in the universe. We're basically shouldering the burden of the universe. That's how we see it.
On behalf of the Jewish?
On behalf of the entire world. We have a tradition that were there a moment to pass that there wasn't a group of Jews learning Torah, the world would disintegrate immediately and cease to exist.
So aside from the mystic belief that the world is held together by Jews studying the Bible, the more I spoke with Yoel, he explained to me how he feels that a history of living exclusively religious lives is what has kept the Jewish people together over the millennia. And who else is going to keep this tradition going, if not for the Haredim?
The only way the Jewish people can go on, and if we believe that there is some importance and legitimacy and urgency that the Jewish people still exist, it cannot exist without Judaism, which is centered around the Torah.
For a lot of Israelis, Haredim's unique army exemption is less of an issue than the fact that a large percentage also receive stipends from the government to support them in their religious studies, many never entering the workforce.
The real question is, why should I, as a non-Haredi, non-ultra-Orthodox Jew, be financially supporting them to study in yeshiva their whole life? Hundreds of thousands of people that are learning something that might be diametrically opposed to my worldview.
Are there people who live off the stipends their whole life, or is that generally the trend? People study for a period and then...
Well, there was a time that it was possible, but that changed in 2003 when then Finance Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who's today our Prime Minister, he actually cut the funding, and since then it's been impossible to live off of that stipend. It just gave you that little boost. that little bit of validation from the government that calls itself a Jewish government.
A modern and largely secular Israel has always struggled to maintain the mandate it gave itself to establish a uniquely Jewish homeland, while balancing an ever-evolving culture that just wants to fit in with everyone else in the world. The Haredim weren't just rallying in protest of an army draft. They were taking a stand against Israel's movement towards what they view as a dangerous disregard for its heritage. But, with increasingly diverse demographics, the verdict is still out on just how Israel will handle itself as a paradoxically Jewish and democratic modern country. What do you see in the next 10 years? Is that Arabs serving in the army, being required also for fear of criminal offense, or does anybody have any idea?
That's a really good question. I personally believe that we should strive to create an equal application to law to all communities in Israel. What is justice? What justice is not is just us. Justice has to be an equal application of law and regulations to all people within any given society.